ever since you've blown some leads against Alabama and had some opportunities to win, Alabama's the standard for everybody. Everybody's trying to clear that hurdle. You've been the most successful team against them and had some chances to win the national championship, chances to win the SEC championship. You've kind of blown opportunities and done it in a variety of ways. That was David Pollack talking to the J-Boy Show. And I think some people would take issue to the "you've been the most successful team against them" part. I think if you're talking about on the field without looking at the result of the game, yeah, there's no question about that. They have battled Alabama more than anyone in Kirby's time. The problem is they haven't beaten them, and which is kind of David's point here. And he says as well, I think you battle that, of course. He's right, and that's something that Georgia's going to have to get over probably this season. Dean Legge from Dog Post, making you a smarter Georgia fan. David never really minces words. He tells you exactly what he thinks, that's for sure. And when you start talking about this discussion right here, it goes back to, for me, that it's time for Kirby. And, he's built this program into a monster. And it's time for that monster to start acting like a monster when it comes to Alabama. That's easier said than done for sure. And for all the chest beating of like Clemson or even Auburn, some of those wins were coming on 6 years ago now, and it's been a while. Alabama reasserted itself for sure in 2020. It certainly took a step back in 2019 when it left the Citrus Bowl trophy on the field after winning that game, not caring one bit about it. This past season was as good a college football season for any team that I can in my lifetime. I mean, you're talking about winning 11 conference games. Only one of them was within a touchdown. Florida played Georgia as well. Florida played Alabama as well as anyone. Georgia played Alabama as well. But the problem is for Georgia is they're not winning the game. And I mean, it's not like it's impossible to beat Alabama. Auburn's done it a couple of times in recent memory. We certainly think about the 2017 game where they more than held their own. They whipped Alabama that night at Auburn. And not a lot of programs have beaten Nick Saban. Georgia's one of them. But now that was, Kirby was on the Alabama staff when that happened. And it's I think, to me, the ratcheting of expectations is not something that is out of control at all. I mean, when you're talking about adding the transfer players that Georgia has done this offseason, that takes you to another level. And when David is talking about they've been the most successful team against them, on the field, all you have to do is watch the games. I mean, they're real fights. You're going late into the third quarter and Georgia's got the lead against Alabama. You're going, obviously, late into the fourth quarter, and they had the lead against Alabama in the national championship game. You start talking about the SEC championship game in 2018. That was a game Georgia was firmly in control of for the bulk. They were the better team in the national championship game. They were the better team in the SEC championship game. You take away a play here or there, and the outcome's different, but you can't do that. You can't take plays away. That would be like saying taking away Beluta Scott and Florida wins the game. But they didn't. It didn't happen. So with the array of players, the arsenal that this Georgia team has, matching up against an Alabama team that they don't play in the regular season. We won't see this until the SEC championship game if it happens. But, Alabama's not the same team they were a year ago. I think they're the best team in college football, but they're not what they were in 2020. They're replacing a lot of parts, needless to say, the receivers as well as the running back and quarterback. Quarterback was a gifted player who was in the pocket all the time, and they protected him. That offensive line was as good as I've seen in a long time. That Alabama offense was special. It wasn't just Joe Burrow and the receivers like LSU had. Joe Burrow took LSU on his back, basically. This wasn't the same thing at Alabama. It was more spread out. There were more weapons to worry about, and Georgia was certainly holding its own. The Gators did the same way. But if you're Kirby, you can't take a fourth loss to them. Not before you get a win. And I just, there's a lot of criticism from from haters of Kirby Smart, which is, that's just what they're going to do. It's what it is. There's criticism of folks who are not really super knowledgeable about things. I'm not either of those things. I'm a person who's covered Georgia. This is my 21st season doing it. I'm not some moron with a national perspective who doesn't know the first thing about the conference or anything like that. I'm on the ground. I see this all the time. I understand the recruiting. And the recruiting is one reason why I have these particular statements. They've got to do this. And if they don't this season, particularly when they play Alabama or if they play Alabama, there's going to be justifiable questions about if Kirby Smart can do it or not. He can eliminate those by winning right away. He can also eliminate them by winning them in 2022 or whatever. But, the only team that he's really not beaten is Alabama. They've not beaten LSU. They only played LSU twice. They played Alabama 3 times, and it's looking like 4 here soon. They've dominated everybody else except Alabama. So I think that when you talk about what David said, Alabama's a standard for everybody, that's completely true. And that's the part that Georgia's going to have to confront, compete, and get over, because they have not done that. And it's cost them at least 2 national championships, if not 3, in the last 12 years. And, you can't leave those on the table. I mean, Texas thought they would be winning national championships like crazy after 2005. I'm sure Georgia did it after January 1st, 1980, and it didn't happen. Miami, Nebraska, Texas, Michigan, Oklahoma. You can name a lot of people who haven't won it in a very long time, and Georgia's certainly one of them. But unlike some of those schools, Georgia's not been a raging disaster for periods of time, certainly not in the last 20 years. So there hasn't been a decade of disaster like at Texas. Alabama did go through their own Texas phase, by the way. From the time that Gene Stallings left to the time that Nick Saban got there, Alabama did not, it was bad. I'll put it to you that way. From 1997, someone can help me. Certainly 98, he was gone. Until Nick got there in 2007, and then even that season was a real rough 7-6 year. Georgia's not had that. Texas has dealt with that. Oklahoma had the entire 90s. People talk about the 90s at Georgia. They weren't close to being that bad like Texas and Oklahoma have had. And so now, when you've been this good for this long, it's a befuddling explanation as to why the person who's gotten them in this position hasn't yet done it. And the reason why he hasn't yet done it is because he hasn't yet done it. There's any number of explanations. People who are haters call them excuses, but there are any number of explanations, and it's what it is. But there's really no explanation moving forward. Kirby Smart is recruited as well as anyone, including Alabama, if not better than the Tide. He has got his quarterbacks, plural, now. The defense, that's never been a problem for Kirby. And the offensive coordinator has been very good to spectacular at times. So this is the season to put it all together. And it's not like you're going to run the guy out of the building if he doesn't win the national championship this season. All I'm saying is, with what David Pollack said, ever since you've blown some leads against him and had some opportunities to win, you kind of blown opportunities and done it in a variety of ways. Yeah, and Georgia did that for a long time against the Gators. They were blown out. They lost gut-wrenching games. David knows about that in 2003, 2002. They lost during the day. They lost at night. They lost when it was raining. They lost during the day. And they just lost. And then that changed. And Georgia did a number on Florida where they blew them out. They won the tight games. They won the routine games. They were the better team. It happens. But now is the time for Kirby to take advantage of this opportunity. This is year 6. I don't know how long he'll be around for. I don't think he's leaving anytime soon by any stretch. But you've got $173 million of of spending on football since Kirby's arrived. He's rejuvenated the interest in the program. They've really dominated their rivals, certainly since 2017. It's go time. And I think that Kirby and them understand that. What do you think? Tell me down below. I'm sure you will. I'm sure you haters will have a field day. Congratulations on that. We'll see you over on the website, dogpost.com.